Thinking of buying an electric car? Here's some tips. I'm the grumpy old man with an EV. I've owned EVs and plug-in hybrids for quite a few years now. So if you're thinking of buying an electric vehicle, and you probably would be with the price of fuel going up at the moment, then pay attention. I can give you a few tips to help you prepare for the change.
1.
Tip 1, change your mindset. Look, the hardest thing about owning an electric vehicle, I believe, is changing the mindset. Whilst I love EVs, I will admit that you need to think differently, and that scares a lot of people. They just don't like change. Well, preparation is everything. You don't just want to come into possession of your EV without knowing what you're getting yourself into. You may well have heard that they're bad, the batteries don't last long, you can't tow, you can't go very far, and so on. There's been so much FUD, that's fear, uncertainty and doubt, being spread around. 99% of it, by the way, is probably funded by the oil and gas industry. They want to keep their market share and they're trying to discredit EVs. And as you'll see, their income stream is slowly disappearing. So, if you come across something that discredits EVs, just don't believe it. Research it. Ask around. Don't just ask anyone. Ask people in the EV world, like yours truly. I've researched this field thoroughly, and I still do. As someone with a high-level science background, I've got a bloody good idea of what's what. And I promise I'll give you some unbiased facts. And if you're worried about FUD, check here. I've got some FUD busters.
2.
Tip 2, work out the maths. Ugh. Oh, yeah, mathematics. It may not be your forte, but bear with me as I try to help you through this. How far do you need to travel in a day routinely? The average commute in Australia is about 40 kilometres, 25 miles, just under. And it's very similar in America and many other countries. Yes, there are people that travel a lot more than that on a regular basis. You know, salesmen and so on. But the average is still 40 kilometres a day. Every now and again, you may go away for the weekend and travel a few hundred kilometres each way. But how often does that happen? Once or twice a year, maybe. So this is going to determine how big a battery you might need, as the smaller the battery, the less the cost. That's obvious. So be aware that the advertised ranges of EVs are a bit of an exaggeration. It's similar in petrol and diesel cars. Their economy figures are also wrong when compared to the real world. But they don't give range. What they do is give you litres per 100k or miles per gallon. Then you've got to go down the fine print and find out how big the tank is and do some maths. So EVs tend to give you range. And as I said, it's an exaggeration. The closest to the real world range is called the EPA range. But even this overestimates real world by about 10%. But it does depend upon how you drive. So the majority of the EVs on the market now can travel between 300 and 400 kilometres on a single charge. And that's going to be sufficient for most people's needs. To get a better idea of real world range, you can find out how big the battery is in kilowatt hours, and that's usually easily available. And then you can have a look at its efficiency, i.e. how many watt hours per kilometre or kilowatt hours per 100 kilometres. Some places do that in miles per kilowatt hour. But here in Australia, we do litres per 100k or kilowatt hours per 100k. So divide the battery size by its efficiency to get a rough idea. So as an example, 60 kilowatt battery with a car that uses 15 kilowatts per 100 kilometres, that will do around 400k. 60 divided by 15. Better yet, just ask an owner of the same car you're looking at buying, and they will tell you. For instance, my Tesla Model Y has got a 60 kilowatt hour battery, and I'm currently averaging 15.1 kilowatt hours per 100k. So real world range is between 395 and 400. Of course, it does depend upon how you drive, just like any other vehicle, and there's a lot of variations in range in the EV world. Depends on wind, wetness, is it raining, road surface, etc., etc. I think I did a video on that. If I did, there's a link up here.
3.
Tip 3, if you can, work out your total cost of ownership. Doing this will give you a much better idea of what it costs to own and run your EV. This will, once again, require some maths, sorry about that, as well as a bit of research. How much you will have to borrow, if anything, over what period of time, at what interest rate. There are many calculators on the internet that you can use to calculate the cost of buying your car. Once you've got that monthly figure, you'll need to work out the cost of fueling. EVs are definitely cheaper to run than petrol or diesel cars, but you'll need to know how much your electricity costs you at home and out and about at various public charging stations. If you've got solar panels at home and you're home during the day, like me, then it may cost you nothing to fuel your car with electrons. Mine's currently sitting in the garage being charged from the spare electricity on my solar panels. Really, that's costing me nothing. I would have had the solar panels anyway, and it's just not getting fed into the grid at 7 cents per kilowatt. Not really worth it. So let's just assume that you do 50 kilometers per day and your car's doing 15 kilowatt hours per 100k. So over a month, it will have done about 1,500 kilometers and will have used 225 kilowatts of electricity. 15 by 15. At an average cost of, say, 30 cents for the home tariff during the day, that's $67.50 per month. That's a lot less than what you pay now for your petrol and diesel. You may also need to think about servicing. The company selling you your car will give you an idea of the yearly cost of servicing. So divide that by 12. With my Tesla, the yearly cost of servicing is 0. So if I actually go by everything in the book exactly, it works out to be about $100 a year, which is neither here nor there. As always, with any type of car, there are going to be some ongoing costs: tyres, insurance, tolls, taxes, etc. And if you can include all those. But compared to the ICE and the EV, a lot of those are going to be about the same. But, the one lower cost is going to be the cost of fueling your EV.
4.
Tip 4, charging at home and out and about. Will your car come with a cable that you can connect to a standard 10 or 15 amp plug at home? Most of them do. Nowadays, the Teslas that are coming through now don't, unless you ordered it early June or before. So with a 10 amp socket, you can easily add between 10 and 15 kilometers of range to your car every hour overnight it's parked in your garage. If it's parked there for, say, 10 hours, that means you can probably add 100 to 150, say 125 kilometers of range overnight. So if you're doing under 125 kilometers a day, you won't need any other charging options but a 10 amp cable and plug that into your car. So that's going to cover most scenarios. They say 90% of people with an EV charge at home. So you don't do much charging out on the road. Now, some people may prefer to have what's called a destination charger installed. So on a single phase power supply, that can provide up to 7 kilowatts, which is about 50 to 60 kilometres of range added every hour. On a 3-phase supply, you can get up to 11 kilowatts, but your car may not be able to take more than 7 kilowatts. A few do, Teslas for instance. And if you can get 11 kilowatts into your car, look, that's 80 kilometres every hour. So you're going to fill it up overnight very easily. Where are the charges when you're out and about? So if you do need some urgent top-up or you're doing a long journey, then a good app to look at is called PlugShare. Not only will this show you where all the charges are, how much it costs, and some are free, and whether they're working or not, which is actually quite useful to know. Because one of the problems with a lot of these public chargers is that they're broken. They've been vandalized or whatever. So the other thing is on PlugShare, check in when you plug into one of those, and then it will help other people know that it's currently in use and when you'll be unplugging and moving on. A lot of people that I talk to say, but there's no chargers. Basically because they don't see them. Like I know where they all are, so I see them. You're driving around, you'll see umpteen petrol stations, but they're large buildings. A lot of EV chargers are actually very small little units, so it's very hard to see them. Some petrol stations are now rolling out the installation of EV chargers, such as Ampol with its Amp Charge here in Australia, and I think Shell are looking at installing a few. State governments are also beginning to roll out some fast chargers, so travelling in an EV will become easier over the next year or so. But I know a couple of people that have driven around Australia in an EV just recently in opposite directions in a brand new Model Y rear-wheel drive, which has got a range of approximately 400 kilometres. So it is possible.
5.
Tip 5. Hire an EV to try one for a few days. Dealerships can let you take a test drive, but there's not too many dealerships with EVs. So the best way is to go out and hire one. In Australia, there's ev.com, which is evee.com. I think it might even be .au at the end. And Tesla Taxi is another one. And Turo, which is an EV hiring company in America, is just setting up here in Australia as well. And Hertz has got a lot of EVs, so there's another option. There's lots of EV rental companies in many countries. So with people like Hertz getting into the EV marketplace, it's not too hard to hire one. Take it out for a weekend or a few days. It'll give you a much better idea of what is required. As I said at tip 1, you need a different mindset. So it takes a little bit more planning at first. But now, as someone who's been using EVs for a while, it's all become second nature. Take a few EVs out for a spin and it'll help you decide which EV is right for you. Eventually, we will all get more choices, especially here in Australia, and there'll be EVs at different price points. Maybe one day. And as more chargers are installed all over the place, life gets easier.
6.
Tip number 6. Join a user group. Once you've decided what EV you want, hunt out a user group, maybe on Facebook or wherever. Join up and start asking questions. Here in Western Australia, we've got the Tesla Owners Club of WA, which we refer to as TOCWA. And we run weekly Zoom meetings specifically designed for new owners or people thinking of buying a Tesla to come along and ask questions. So it doesn't matter how stupid the question is, we'll answer them to the best of our ability. There are many Tesla owners clubs around the world, and many more are springing up in new countries. Not just Tesla, other companies like BYD, I'm sure, are beginning to get BYD owners clubs. Certainly on Facebook, there's a few. So join in, ask questions.
7.
Tip 7, choosing the right car. This isn't the easiest one. As I said earlier, go out and hire a few. That will help. In Australia, we're very limited at the moment as to what EVs are available, but it is getting better. But there are several things to consider. Price is obviously the main one, and there are several incentives in different states to help reduce the cost of the EV. Here in Western Australia, $3,500 rebate after you've paid for the car. So you've got to come up with the money up front. Then you'll get $3,500 back. So it comes down to what can you afford? Now, remember, EVs cost less to run. So, what do you need? Sedan, SUV, that's pickup truck, or something in the luxury bracket like a Mercedes. Yeah. So it's going to come down to personal preference. At the moment, the two cheapest EVs in Australia are the BYD Atto 3 and the MG ZS EV, which are both crossover SUVs, and they're both very good value and will qualify for rebates that are available. So have a look at those two. Then if you want to go up to something a little bit more, Tesla, in my opinion, is the best car in the EV world that you can get. I haven't ridden in a EQS Mercedes, but I don't have a few $100,000 spare either.
8.
Tip number 8, get the right apps. So just before you take delivery of your EV, there are certain apps that will assist you. So I've already mentioned one, PlugShare. Different countries, there'll be different apps for a variety of chargers. And this is the one thing that really does piss me off a bit. Different chargers installed by different companies all require their own app to use. I really would like some sort of standardization. Hopefully one day all public chargers will simply allow a debit or credit card to be used to pay for the charge. Like at petrol stations, fill up, go to the counter, tap your card and walk off. Would it be a good idea? Yes. It's beginning to happen, certainly here in Western Australia. All the state government charges that they're putting in, and there's going to be 49 of them, or at least 49 sites. One of the things they've said is they've got to have a tap your credit card to pay. So hopefully we'll get there one day, or we just have one app for the whole lot. It's not quite as simple as VHS and Betamax, like with the video recorders. We've got umpteen different apps. So ask that user group what apps you're going to need and get them installed and so on. Some of them you can actually get discounts. So over here, we can get a discount on ChargeFox if you're an RAC member. 20% off most of the charges, maybe not all of them, but it still helps.
9.
Tip 9, enjoy your EV. You've got your EV, so enjoy it. Over time, you'll get to know what you can and can't do. As it all stands at the moment with fast DC chargers, certainly here in WA, they're not spaced evenly. And although the state government is doing something about that, there is a current lack of fast charging. So it does mean a little bit more planning if you want to do a long trip, but it's not impossible. As I've said, many people have gone around Australia, and just recently, 2 people in brand new Model Ys, rear-wheel drive, with a range of about 400 kilometres, have just gone around Australia in opposite directions, and things will be getting easier.
10.
Tip number 10. You've got your EV and you hadn't done any of this. Don't panic. Okay, there's plenty of knowledgeable people around to help. Whilst trial and error is possible, owning an EV is not like owning an internal combustion engine vehicle. Yes, at the moment it is more challenging, as I've said a few times, but that can be a fun factor. Don't forget, just ask for help. The right people, and by that I mean EV owners groups. They know and they are always willing to help. So, ask. Well, there you are. I hope you found that useful. Please share it with people that you know who are thinking of getting an EV. Don't forget, click that like and subscribe button down below, and I'll see you all very soon.